Hello and welcome to our 2020 Virtual Candidate Forum. On behalf of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for tuning in and we thank our candidates for participating. I'm Nikki Devitt, President of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined by Sarah Hagan, President of the Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce, in hosting this call. We want to start with giving a quick introduction on our forum and how it works. Our Chamber's Government Relations Committee looks forward to hosting these forums each and every year to give our residents and our business owners a chance to hear directly from the candidates on some of the issues facing our area and our state. The questions were vetted by the committee and created by our forum moderator, Scott LeDour, Professor of Political Science at North Central Michigan College. The candidates we have joining us today for the 107th District race are Jim Page and John DeMoose. Candidates, you will be asked questions by our moderator in a rotating order so that each of you has equal opportunity to be the first one to answer. You will each have 90 seconds to answer the question, and Sarah will hold up time cards indicating when we are at 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and when time is up. We will promptly move along when the time is up. We will unmute you, or you can unmute yourself when it is your turn to speak, and we ask that you remain muted when you are not speaking for the courtesy of others. And with that, we are going to turn it over to our moderator, Scott, to begin today's forum.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the candidates. I will start by asking a question of Jim, and then after he is completed answering, it will go to John, and then we will start the next question with John, and then to Jim. So the first question to Jim Page. The state of Michigan has been in reaction mode over the past few years. Challenges such as the decline in the state's population, the failure of the Midland Dam, and the Flint water crisis have found the state unprepared and overwhelmed. In your opinion, what issue or series of issues should the state be more proactive on in order to avoid these types of situations? First to Jim. Oop. Can't hear you, Jim.
Forgot to unmute.
You got it.
First problem, forgot to unmute.
There you go.
All right. First problem is you've got disasters that are coming that we're unprepared for. They're unforeseen. So it's virtually very difficult to prepare for something that you don't know what's coming in. Environmental issues, we need to do more protection of our environment all the way through. We need to do preparation now. And that's something in there. The COVID-19 has struck us hard. We need a little bit more in financial areas to make sure that we have a rainy day fund and can take care of some of these problems in the future. And that can only come with preparation now, and it's something that you have to look forward and think about. And so we need to actually start preparing for eventual disasters that are going to come in there by doing that rainy day funds and increasing our revenues in that area. But in particular, when you talk about the dam situation, that's something that we really, really have to work on. That's environmental. It's also to protect our environment. We need infrastructure upgrades in bridges and roads and infrastructure all the way through. And if we take care of it now, it'll prevent some of this stuff in the future.
Thank you, Jim. The same question to John then.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for hosting this event here. You're exactly right. The state of Michigan needs to stop being caught off guard on things. And we saw the biggest example of that this year. In fact, the entire country was caught off guard. And it's one of the things that really has become central to my entire campaign is that we need to plan for future emergencies better than we have in the past, because we cannot keep asking our businesses to shut down, our families to stop operating, and lock down our economy, and we're going to be facing a lot of consequences as a result. So one of the things we need to think strategically is, how do we handle future emergencies? We need to think strategically on infrastructure and prioritize that, because the fact of the matter is, especially given our current economic crisis that we're about to face, or at least the budget shortfalls, we're not going to have the money to do all the things we thought we were going to do. So we're going to have to think very strategically, which roads do we fix, which bridges are most important. We need to think strategically about energy. And that's why I think we absolutely need to stop holding up Line 5. This is a great solution, and we need to pursue this because the people of Michigan are going to require this, and we have to defend our Great Lakes. So I think we need to identify the key problems that could be coming in the long term and start to begin to use strategic thinking and address them now.
Thank you, John. This next question will start with John. Local school districts in our area report that enrollment of K through 12 students has jumped double-digit percentages this fall due to seasonal residents deciding to stay up north for the winter. What steps can our region take to provide reasons for these people to remain here full-time? First to John and then to Jim.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, this is my number one priority in the campaign, is to build an economy. It's not just for people who are moving up here, but where our children and our grandchildren have the opportunity to stay closer to home and don't have to go across the country to find work. The stage has been set for more full-time residents, and this helps float every boat. It helps education. It helps us get off of this terrible seasonal economy that we have, but a lot of things have to happen. And the number one thing in my mind is that we need to build our skilled workforce and reassess our educational priorities to focus more on career and technical education, because companies will not relocate to an area if there's not a skilled workforce. We need that. We need infrastructure, and this is something we're already working on intensely, actually. I've had meeting after meeting on rural broadband, because now that we've all learned we can work remotely, we need to make sure that it's possible from a physical standpoint to work remotely. Housing, we definitely know housing is a problem. There's a lot of this housing will follow the economic growth in our area, but there are certain things like changing how MISHDA allocates the federal credits to be more fair to rural districts. Right now they favor urban districts. There's a lot can be done, but the stage is set for a whole lot more people to move to our area.
John, thank you. And the same question to Jim. If anybody needs questions repeated, please let me know. I'm happy to. So Jim, question to you.
Well, the same thing is going to happen. It's both of us are in the same group here. Yes, we need broadband up in here. We have more people living in here, full-time residents. We need the broadband to be expanded in here so more people can work from home. And that's where you're seeing the people that are moving up in here and are staying up in here are doing it because they can work from home. And so we need to have broadband. We need to have cellular coverage covering a lot of our remote areas. I know I travel around this district and I will lose cell phone coverage in certain areas. And we do not have broadband in certain residential areas that we need to expand it. That's a given. We need to do something. We need to work on that. We need to fund it and get it out there and make sure that we have that capability throughout our district. Education is important to me. It's one of my key areas that I want to work on. And we need to have a better educational system throughout our state, a fair and fully funded education system that provides for career education and vocational education. But we also have to include early childhood development, and we also need to make sure that we have the mental health capacity to work on to support the communities that we're coming up. So there's a lot of everything that we have to take care of. It's not just one answer.
Thank you. Jim, this next question starts with you. What steps should the state government take to prepare for COVID-19 during the upcoming flu season? First to Jim.
Well, we have to follow the science. Really, we really need to really protect the citizens. We need to make sure that we are following the guidelines of the scientists that are giving us the information and not be political here. We need to wear a mask. We need to make sure that we're social distancing. We need to make sure that we are washing our hands. We're doing everything to protect each other as much as possible throughout this time. We need to make sure that if we get an outbreak, we need to have the testing available, and we need to contact trace. And we need to isolate people that have the problem that they get when they get infected. They need to be isolated, and we need to do that. And we have to follow the science, and we have to take care of each other as much as possible. We need to avoid a shutdown if we have to, but if that becomes necessary, that's something that we have to do. But it's based upon the science and the evidence of what's happening at the time.
Thank you, Jim. John, same question to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, going back, this has been, I haven't met anybody who doesn't want a complete do-over on 2020. And I'll say that at first we were all scared, and I think we need to grant everybody involved a measure of grace. This was new for everybody. I extend that to the governor. It was new for the president. I feel like over the past several months, it's been exploited for political purposes. And the number one thing I think we need to do is to re-involve the legislature. We have a separation of power in this country and in this state for a reason. Those rules and those laws are put in place for an emergency. That's exactly when you don't suspend the rules of operation. I do not believe in unlimited executive power for an unlimited period of time. We need all hands on deck. But our governor has chosen to go it alone, and it's led to conflicting, confusing, and contradictory policies. I believe overall, the solution I think we need to follow is a local control, a regionalized approach. And that's what the Republicans were advocating from the beginning. I think it makes perfect sense to treat the Upper Peninsula and northern lower Michigan differently than we treat downtown Detroit or Ann Arbor. They had a much different crisis there. And I think the local officials are best at gauging what's actually happening in our schools and our businesses and on the streets of our towns.
Thank you, John. This question will start with you. Surveys of young parents have found that they are having fewer children than they would like to have. When asked, these parents respond that the lack of affordable childcare, the burden of college loan payments, and the need to maintain two incomes make it difficult to create the family size that they desire. What support can the state of Michigan offer young families facing this challenge? First to John and then to Jim.
I think it always goes back to fixing the economy. If we can get, especially up in our district, off of this terrible seasonal economy and we begin to grow real jobs, that helps families achieve the goals they're going for right there. I absolutely understand that we've watched this system spiral out of control for the past 30 or 40 years, where we today, to have even close to the lifestyle we would have had 30 years ago, both parents have to be working. In our case, it also involves a bit of sacrifice. For years and years, my wife chose not to work. And it did nothing but benefit our kids, and it did nothing but cost us opportunities financially. It was a burden we were willing to take on, and I think a lot of parents are. But if we can start to get these different jobs up here, rebuild manufacturing in Michigan, rebuild the skilled trades, and give more opportunities, we can fix a lot of this for people.
Thank you, John. To Jim.
Well, it again goes back to economy. I would agree with that. However, I think it also has to do with a livable wage. We need a livable wage, and our workers need to make a good living, and they have to have the education and the skill level to earn that livable wage in our communities. We also we have cut our child care facilities. We need to make sure that we have the tax incentives back into supporting the families. And we have to do that. We've actually decreased the child tax breaks over the last couple of years. We need to install those and reinitiate and have them get the tax breaks that they need and for families, and make support for families of the income. We need to do that. And we need to actually, on that, we also need to do our senior citizens and protect our senior citizens and reduce the taxes that are going on senior citizens right now. But as far as families go, we need to support childcare, and we also need to increase the availability of low-income childcare. And that can be done through early childhood development and access to different programs.
Thank you. This question starts with Jim then. Can you provide an example of where you are different from most of the other members of your political party? First Jim and then John.
From my political party?
Correct.
There is not very much difference between my political party in what I know. I don't know where to go on to this one because we're pretty much in line. There's only a few exceptions. Some of us are more supportive of the Medicare for all. I would like to think that we could get to a single payer care system. I think that that's something that we have to work on. We need affordable health care. The party wants to seem to go to that a great deal, or there's a lot of people that want to do that in the left wing or the progressive area into it. I think we need to do a more dramatic, we're going to get there, but it has to be a slower process. So in my political party, that's where I differ.
Thank you. John, same question to you.
Okay. Well, I'm not a completely partisan person. I've been a committed Republican for my whole life, but there are areas where I differ from my party. And I'll give you 2 examples. One of them is public education. I tend to be a major supporter of public education, probably more so than other people in my party. One, I'm a product of public education. I had a great experience. My wife is on the school board in our local school district here. We have 4 great kids. 3 of them have graduated from our public schools here and have gone to some of the best universities in the world. And I saw firsthand what these teachers poured into our kids. I mean, they did a great job. I think our first educational priority in the state must be to help our public schools provide the highest quality education to our kids. So I probably am a little bit stronger on public education. And then the other one I got to tell you is health care. I'm not a supporter of the Affordable Care Act, but if we are being honest about it, the system we had beforehand wasn't that great. I mean, I ran a business, or I do run a business, and every year we were seeing 20%, 21%, 18% increases year over year in the cost of our insurance. Nothing else even came close in terms of how fast it went up. I believe in a country that is as wealthy as ours, we should be able to do better, and we should be able to protect people with pre-existing conditions, and we should be able to find a way to make sure that the poorest among us are covered.
Thank you. This question starts with John and then goes to Jim. What did you learn about our state's economy, communities, and our society as a whole in the last 6 months? And what will you do differently in 2021 because of what you have learned during the COVID-19 pandemic? First to John and then to Jim.
Okay. First of all, I noticed that, I mean, it was an interesting time for us all, no question. And like I said, you do have to extend a measure of grace to everybody. I did, we all learned from a personal standpoint. I never expected to have my kids home again with me. One of them was graduating from grad school. One of them's a senior in college. One's off now, supposedly as a freshman in college. So he's in our first floor doing that. But having everybody home was a wonderful blessing, and we all have those type of things. So I learned to look at the bright side of things every now and then. I learned, though, how hostile our society has become, and it's just sad. There's no reason we're beating each other up over masks, that we're beating each other up over any number of things. I put up a post early on saying, about reopening our business. I wanted to reopen our business, and somebody said, you just want to put profits above people. I don't. I want to feed my family. And I think these type of things, I think we've learned a lesson that we got to do better with grace and civility going forward. I think we did learn a lesson that local control is awfully good. We've done a good job in our town with it. Our school system came together and fixed problems without having to go to the state at all on it. So I think some of these things have been good for us, but we need to take a serious look at what we can do better in the future.
Thank you. Jim, same question to you.
You've touched on it all right there, and I have to agree with you on a lot of what you said. There is a lot of things that I've seen out there that people are willing to protect each other, and there has been a lot of positive in there, and there's a lot of caring between individual people, and they're wearing the mask, and they're very, very protective of each other. And when I started this, I'm an old-fashioned politician. You wanted to go out there and knock on doors and meet people. Can't do that now, all right? You just can't. So we're more susceptible, and we're friendlier towards each other in a lot of areas, and we're protective of each other. We've been wearing a mask. We've been following the guidelines, at least the people that I know. The problem that I see is there's some people that have refused to wear the mask. When I go into a store and there's somebody there that's not wearing a mask, I try to go away from them. I stay away from them. And there are people that have become very negative on that and politicized it, and it shouldn't be done. We shouldn't be there. I don't know how we're going to do that in the future. That's something that we're going to have to get time and consideration of other people, and it's consideration is more important than anything else.
Thank you. This next question starts with Jim. Young people in Michigan are now competing in a global job market. However, state funding for higher education was lower in 2018 than it was in the year 2008. Colleges and universities have been forced to raise tuition, making it more difficult for our young people to acquire the skills and knowledge that they need to succeed. What solutions are you willing to support in the face of this challenge? First to Jim and then to John.
Well, somehow in this situation, we have to come up with revenues to support our public education system. And that is all the way through, from early childhood development all the way through college. We have to do that. It comes into looking at our budget and running a budget that can provide for our public schools to have the money that they need to run the school system, right? We need to increase the funding for all the school systems and colleges in particular. We might look at possibly earning some ways of earning reduction on college debt. When they go into a service where it might be medical, it may be into education or anything like that, that we can forgive some of the debt that we can go through to help reduce that on the student debt. Eventually, I think we're going to have to work and try to support our public educations so that we can have a free college system. I know that that's against some of the peoples that don't like that, but I think that's what we have to do. I think we need to work towards as much to do that to reduce the cost of our schools.
Thank you, Jim. And the same question to John.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here. Let me give a little bit of backdrop. One of the things I'm doing right now is not just campaigning, but I'm meeting with people all over our district to learn as much as I possibly can to do this job well. And I've had a number of meetings with public college people, major universities here, and including one yesterday. And I got to tell you, the University of Michigan, I love it. I went there, my wife went there, my dad went there, his dad went there. We've had great experiences there. They're pulling in $323 million per year from the state. At the same time, they're raising tens of billions of dollars for capital campaigns. I have a hard time justifying that when I know there are teachers in our own district making $28,000 a year. I just don't think that's right. I think we should support public education, public universities. I think we especially should focus on community colleges because we get such value out of community colleges throughout our district and throughout our state. But I think we need to spend a lot of time really looking at how much these universities are spending. We need to support them, but when a university professor is making $350,000 a year, and we got a local school teacher making $28,000 a year, struggling to feed their family, I got to tell you, my priorities with the K through 12 people.
Thank you. This question starts to John then. A petition is circulating in the state, which, if successful, would allow the Michigan Legislature to repeal part or all of the 1945 Emergency Powers Act without the governor having an opportunity to issue a veto. Governor Whitmer has used the Emergency Powers Act to issue a number of executive orders in response to the COVID pandemic. Do you support this petition? And if elected, would you vote to repeal the Emergency Powers Act? First to John and then to Jim.
Yes, on both occasions. Because the bottom line is, I think throughout this crisis, we have seen the need for having more than one body involved. I'll tell you what, when Executive Orders 160 and 161 came out, I happened to be campaigning in Detour, and I was sitting in a restaurant. It was later in the evening, and that was one of those was the one where she said, now we can only have 10 people together inside. And the restaurant owner said, I guess this means I have to close again. Well, clearly, by the next 2 or 3 days later, she had to explain, no, it doesn't pertain to restaurants. That's what happens when you go it alone. You get bad legislation. You get poorly worded things. So absolutely, I would get rid of the 1945 law. It was never intended to be used like this. And I would even shore it up a little bit more that in future emergencies, we get more minds working on this than just one person going it alone.
Thank you, John. And the same question to Jim then.
Well, I disagree there because I think that we need to have that executive power to handle emergencies when they occur, and we can't always get together and come to a decision. And this COVID-19 has been politicized too much. We should have done more at the beginning and shut down quicker and done more to protect ourselves and wear masks. That mandate should have been done quicker, and it should be enforced. So I support Governor Whitmer in her decisions, and I think that it's important that she has that power. Now, you can go back and try to work with her as much as the legislature should be working with her to make sure that everybody gets compensated and that everything is done as quickly as possible. But I don't like the idea of taking that power away in an extreme emergency such as this. You need to have that authority to take care of it quickly. And then over time, you can relax it and work with her to determine it. But I agree with her to have that power to do that right now and take care of the situation. And then over time, we can get back to the normal.
Thank you, Jim. This next question starts with you. One of you will win this election and serve as our next state representative. How should voters judge you after you complete your first term and if you seek re-election in 2022? What benchmarks would you set for yourself over the next 2 years? First to Jim and then to John.
What benchmarks? Whether we got things done that would protect the people of our district and make it better for the people of this district and the people for the whole entire state. Judge me that way. Look at what we're at right now and where we will be in the future. Is our education system better? Is our economy better? Is our job protection? Are our workers better off now? That's the way I would like to be judged. Is it better for our families? Is it better for all of the people of this district and not special interest groups?
Thank you. And to John.
Okay. I mean, first of all, there's not a lot of times we can guarantee outcomes. We're going to be working on these economic issues, these education issues. But if I were to really sit back and look at myself 2 years from now and say, was I successful at this? Did I do a good job? I would judge that based on the relationships I've made around the district. I intend to be present all the time. I mean, I'm not even going to Lansing to get into leadership roles in Lansing. I want to do a good job for our district. And in fact, I've already started it now. We spent an entire day in Sheboygan the other day. I probably met with 20 different people, business leaders, the harbor master, the incoming mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, all sorts of people, because I want to build relationships with them and be there to help these communities as much as I can. I think if I also look back, I want to be able to say, I led with a sense of grace and civility. We have too much division and too much anger in our politics today. And there's got to be a way that two people can stand there with completely different viewpoints without asking the other one to sacrifice the core principles they hold dear. I'm not going to give up my core principles either, but that we can have a reasonable discussion and maybe come to some sort of agreement. So mine are probably more outcomes. I've got a lot of goals, but I'm also realistic that everybody who gets elected has a ton of goals, and most of the time you don't get to accomplish those. I want to lead in a different type of a different style.
Thank you. This question starts with John then. The Center for Public Integrity has ranked the state of Michigan last in the nation in terms of transparency for the state legislature and executive branch. Do you believe that this is an issue that needs to be faced? And if so, what measures will you support to increase transparency in the Michigan legislature and the executive branch? First to John and then to Jim.
Yeah. Well, I think this one's simple. I mean, the best answer for that is oversight by the bosses, which is the voting public. And so we should expand the Freedom of Information Act. And there may be, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this or talking about this because everything I do is above board and it's right out there for everybody to take a look at. But I'm not opposed to some new pieces of legislation that sort of reveal even more. We need more transparency, no doubt.
Thank you. And to Jim.
Well, I agree with that. We need the Freedom of Information Act on all areas of the government. One of the things that I have a hard time with is when we talk about the auto insurance industry, and there's the coverage in there is protected by the Freedom of Information Act. They do not have to provide all the information in there. I think that should be done openly, and anything that's being run by the government should have the ability to have the public have that information. Okay, And I know that when I was looking into the auto industry in 2018 and the insurance industry, that some of it was not available because it was protected under rights, but it was a public insurance agency. And I said that shouldn't happen. We need to make sure that we have open documents throughout our government. Just period. That's all we need to do.
Thank you. This next question starts with Jim and then goes to John. Jim, if you could change one thing about how the state of Michigan is run, what would it be?
One thing, I would like to see a progressive tax system, just to help everybody out. And instead of a single tax rate for everybody, I think it needs to be a progressive tax system for personal taxes and business taxes. And I think that would be better for everybody. The lower the income, the less tax you have to pay. The higher the income, a little higher taxes should be available. And it's right to pay it. It is better for everybody. That would be one thing that I think would be good. Maybe our healthcare system. You're limited to me to one thing, so it's hard.
Thank you, Jim. On to John then.
Okay. Well, I might say two things, but that's okay. In the short term, I think the governor shouldn't be running the state on her own, and we need to put protections in place that this can never happen again like this. In the long term, what I've heard from a lot of people is we need to readdress whether we even have a state income tax, because so many people relocate to other states to get away from this income tax where they have more favorable standing, like in Florida and other places like that. We could bring a lot of money back into the state by doing that. Those are the two things I'd do.
Thank you. This next question is then to John first. High water on the Great Lakes has damaged over the past year the Little Traverse Wheelway, eaten away at waterfront parkland, and caused headaches for lakefront residents both on the lake and in inland lake areas. While this is primarily a concern at the moment for local government, what action can the state of Michigan take to mitigate further damage from high water and to help local governments absorb the cost of remediation? First to John and then to Jim.
Yeah, we actually, this is an interesting area because, again, when you run for office, I instantly thought, oh, I know tons of stuff about everything. I'm going to run. And that lasts about 5 minutes. And then you realize, wait a second, I know about 4 or 5 issues top to bottom. And there's a vast majority of things that I really need to learn more on. And so one of the things I'm doing is trying to go out and learn these things. And I just had a great meeting with the Northern District of the Michigan County Drain Commissioners Association. And it was all about these high water marks. And I get there's actually some good legislation in place about how they measure what the high water mark of a lake should be and and how they remedy it. Obviously, there's still more to be learned on this. One of the things I don't have a lot of sympathy for is some of these places where they build giant homes right on the shores of the lake, where this is a cyclical problem and it's going to rise, it's going to go down. And I'm not thinking that the state government has the money to be there to bail those type of people out. But I would say that that we need to work with the local organizations and probably on a case-by-case basis, see what we can do to help. Because these are really, I asked the people up there, I said, wait, they have to do all these studies with an individual inland lake. I don't know if you know how this works. And I asked the people, I said, look, the studies are expensive. Can't you just use one study for another lake? And they went through chapter and verse why that's not possible. Every lake is its own situation. So I think if that's true, then we need to handle it on a case-by-case basis. But we can't let things like Midland keep happening.
Thank you, John. On to Jim.
Yeah, this one is a tough one. Again, being an environmentalist, I don't like the development that we've had that is destroying the shorelines, that we're building right up on the shorelines. And there should be some setback in there, because I used to live on Lake St. Clair. I grew up on Lake St. Clair, and we've had years where you had to jump down from the dock into the boat, and then we had to sandbag 2 years later because the water was up so high. And we had to sandbag our houses to keep the water from coming in the houses. So it is something that has happened. And that was when I was a young man. So that was some time ago. And it's going to happen over and over again. The water will go down eventually. Some of it can be controlled by the Corps of Engineers through damming and other ones, and letting water through that comes through the whole system, the whole Great Lakes system. But most of the time, you have to just learn to live with it and to prepare for the future by not developing so close to the shoreline and protecting our shoreline environment.
Thank you, Jim. This next question will start with Jim and then go to John. Jim, how do we better support small business as Michigan seeks to recover from the economic shocks of 2020?
Well, we have to continue with what we're doing and protect the people in this district. Small businesses have suffered because we've had to shut down to protect people of health of the people of this district. Now, we can support them with financial loans or grants, or relieve some of the pressure off of them by relieving the cost, but we need to get that money to the workers, which would help. If the workers have money or the people have money, then they're going to support the local businesses. Once this economy opens back up, I think the small businesses will come back. It's going to be a slow process. There's going to be no silver bullet that's going to get everybody back together all at once. So it's got to be support, financial support right off the bat, lowering of grants or relieving of loans that they have right now, and supporting the workers and getting the workers back to work.
Thank you, Jim. And the same question to John.
Okay. This is right up my alley, having run a small business for the past 20 years. And I remember in about mid-March when we lost our last client, I didn't want to shut down. I was going to keep going, but all of our clients had to shut down so they couldn't keep working with us for that period of time. And I thought, after 9/11, our business took a huge hit and we rebuilt it. After the Great Recession, it took an enormous hit that took years to rebuild from, but I rebuilt it. After this, I thought, we can probably rebuild it again. But if it happens again and we get shut down again, it's not worth the trip. And the bottom line is, I think the biggest thing we can do is to come up with some reliable plans so businesses know what to expect if there is a resurgence of this virus or if there's a future emergency. Secondly, I think some of the programs that came out were actually very successful. I mean, PPP saved so many businesses, it's unbelievable. But we need to work those out and institutionalize them, because I just heard a report today that some people are wondering whether that's even going to be forgivable. That will put businesses out of business. If those rules are changed. We need to stop coming up with arbitrary rules and regulations. And then another big important one is we're going to have to really look at take steps to limit liability, especially when it comes into things like the virus, the COVID virus, because these businesses are doing it. The ones who are following all the regulations are doing the best they can, and they're going to be facing liability problems that'll put them under. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you. This will be the last question of the forum, and it will start with John and then finish with Jim. What is the biggest challenge facing Northern Michigan over the next few years, and what initiatives will you support to meet that challenge? First to John and then to Jim.
Okay, this goes right back to what I was saying before, that I believe that the biggest challenge that most of the people up here care about is keeping our kids and our grandkids, at least giving them the option to stay closer to home. It's an economic challenge. And the way to solve that is that we need to, one, invest significantly in career and tech education. We need to reprioritize. It's not just important to learn English and math and these things. These things are honorable, important things. We need to work. We have a great system here in Harbor Springs where our kids, partnership between your school, between North Central Michigan College and Harbor Springs High School, which has been perfect for these kids, these high school kids, giving them opportunities. We need to then do what we can to attract some more manufacturing in our area. In fact, I think we need a couple good factories up here. They're good, honorable jobs. And so anything we can do to build this economy so that we can see our kids and see our grandkids. And I'm particularly sensitive because I just took my oldest to Virginia, moved her there for her job. And that's a hard thing to do, to say goodbye. I wish she could stay here. That's my top priority.
Thank you, John. And then to Jim.
Well, yeah, our economy needs to be solid. We need to improve our economy all the way through it. I think one of the things that we have to do is have a livable wage for all employees of this district. One of the things that I've done in my career, and I've seen students and I've seen individuals that are struggling up in here because there are not full-time jobs, and they work 2 and 3 part-time jobs just to get by, and they're only making $9, $10 an hour at these 2 and 3 jobs, and they're struggling to get by. So a livable wage, minimum wage going up. We also need to make sure that we have the broadband to support the full-time jobs up here and to get people working from their homes again. And so broadband becomes an issue that we need to expand it throughout our district, but we also need a livable wage for our young people to stay here. And that also goes with career education. And every student that comes out of our schools should be able to earn a livable wage to make it up here and not have to go down to the large cities to get a good job.
Gentlemen, thank you for your answers. That ends my question, and I will turn it back over to Nikki Devitt.
Thank you very much to you both. That concludes our forum for the candidates for the 107th District, the Petoskey Regional and the Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our moderator, Scott Ledour from North Central Michigan College, and thank you very much to our candidates for participating. Remember, November 3rd is Election Day, and we encourage you to get out and vote. Thank you for coming today, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you for having this, and thank you for hosting this.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, thanks all of you.